Get started. So it's good to see you all. Welcome to our fourth Power BI Run meetup. So just some house rules before we get started. So for the gents, if you need the toilet, it's just straight out that door there. For the ladies, if you go out that door, it's right down the bottom of the alley. If there is an emergency or fire, fingers crossed there isn't. There's a lot of stairs on the way down, but it's that way. Yeah, but hopefully that won't happen. So for those of you that are new, Power BI Run is something that got started in Manchester, well, 6 years ago. So it's a Power BI meetup group, usually happen on Thursdays. It's really for a chance for people to come along, network, grow your skills, depending on what level you are with Power BI at the moment. Like I said, it's really to help people find efficiencies, productivity, and to give you a professional edge. In terms of BI and data team here in Birmingham, so in Manchester, they've got a team of about 6. It's just myself at the moment. So if you have any career kind of questions, you're looking for a new job, if you're looking to hire somebody, come and find me at any point. I'm more than happy to give any advice around that. So in terms of how we're going to go, so after this, I'll hand over to John, who's going to be the psychology and Power BI report design. We'll have a short break for food and drink where we'll be having any more beers, drinks, and a bit of pizza. And then we'll hand over to Daniel, who will be doing DNEB, declarative visualization in Power BI. And we'll finish up at 8. And if anyone has any additional questions, more than happy to ask those. So upcoming meetups, the next one we've got Thursday, the 22nd of June. That's at KPMG. For those of you that came to the last one, it's just by the Snow Hill station. So we're going to have a couple of guys at KPMG speaking. We're just confirming that. And then the other speakers to be confirmed as well. And then in terms of venues and speakers, once again, if anybody would be interested in obviously, having a conversation about us hosting an event there, please do come and find me. We'd be more than happy to. We're really open as long as it's in the city centre and it's accessible. We'd be more than happy to. And if anybody knows anybody or has any topics that they'd like to cover, more than welcome to approach me as well on that. So once again, thank you all for coming. So I'll hand you over to John. We'll get started. John, thank you.
Hello, everybody. Here at the back. Oh, people still coming in. Hiya, my name's Jon Lunn. I'm going to be talking about psychology and report design. I didn't put Power BI report design, but this is for any report design, really, any chart, any graph that you want to design. It's in SQL Server reporting services, Excel, Power BI, Tableau, whatever. These are sort of the common tips and the common things I used to see when doing Power BI consulting. So who am I? That's me, John. Picture of me. I have clean shaven-ish today. I do blog fairly regularly. MrJonLunn.com, LinkedIn, GitHub. If you want to, I'll be loading the Power BI file for one of the things shortly. If you need to email me or contact me, it's John, no H, at MrJonLunn.com. No H, please. So, when you're designing visuals, I went away and started reading some books about it. And there's the 2 main books by Colin Affleck, Storytelling with Data, and Stephen Few, Show Me the Numbers. Stephen Few used to work for Tableau, invented the bullet chart. And these are probably the best 2 books to read about your visualization approach, what visuals to use and why should you use them. And then I read a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. Has anyone read this? Think Faster? Yeah, about how your brain sort of works and how some of the psychological processes in your brain, and then I linked it with how you're visualizing things, because they do talk about how your brain works in those books. I mean, both books are pretty much the same. I think Cole's is probably slightly more accessible, but they've got a little chapter. It's not quite right. And there's a lot of people out there who talk about the intuitive and the attentive process, but they don't take the step back and say, this is what the intuitive process is. This is how your brain works. And having that insight makes you think a little bit differently. Go, okay, I'll take a step back and maybe I need to redesign this. But I'll be talking about 3 things, essentially. The intuitive, your attentive, and cognitive burden. So cognitive burden is basically the amount of mental process you have to do to figure something out. And what is something, when is something intuitive? Why is it intuitive? And why is something attentive? But yeah, those are 3 things you want, hopefully you'll take away today. So what this bit's interactive. If anyone's seen this before, I've been doing this for a few years. So I'm just going to go through, I'm going to show you some pictures. I want you to say what you see. So this guy's happy. Yeah, done the first one for you. Okay. This person is sad. This person is happy. This Smiley. Right. There's no wrong answer. Well, there is. Well, the right answer is obviously happy. But this one's different.
Angry.
Angry. Yeah, he's absolutely furious. I stole his shirt. This one. Sad baby. Never mind. This one's again slightly different. Just shout out the answer whenever you get it. One, two, seven. That's right. So what I've done there is take you through your intuitive process and your attentive process. So your intuitive process is facial recognition, emotional state awareness, something we've all learned since we were children. Happy, sad, angry. Then I kicked you through an attentive process. And when that came on the screen, two things happened. One, all your heart rates increased slightly. And two, your pupils dilated. Pupil dilation and mental effort do go hand in hand. So while you was working that out, your pupils dilated. When you got the answer, back to normal. Yeah. For those that gave up, they dilated for a second, then went back to normal. Yeah. So when I talk also about cognitive burden, I talk about maybe an attentive process, and we can make this attentive process a bit simpler because this isn't intuitive, is it? But you can make it slightly easier, maybe by ordering the numbers, and that's a lot easier to add up than 2 plus 10 plus 5 plus 10 plus 100. 100, 110, 120, 125, 127. That's when I talk about cognitive burden. It's basically how much effort you have to do. Another interactive bit. This is new. I haven't done this in my presentation before. So I'm going to ask you to count what's in front of you. You probably looked at it and just went 3. Didn't bother. Oh, no, just kept the dice, sorry. You just saw 3 objects. Your brain just went 3. Okay, I want you to count how many objects you got here. 7. You probably had to pause and have a look and count them, didn't you? So after about 4, your mental process starts to break down. So you can see visually something very, very quickly and understand it. Whereas again, even though it might seem simple, there's a level of complexity there that you have to try and stop and understand. Again, it's that cognitive burden. So I've shown you your brain works in 2 sorts of ways. An intuitive process, which is quick, snappy. The attentive process is where you have to just pause and go 7 dice or whatever it is, or 127. Yeah. How's that? That's I can never get this right. Subsetting. So it's it's an accurate, rapid, accurate calculation. So when we talk about the intuitive and the attentive process, the book Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman was, well, let me just give you a bit of background. He's a psychologist where he won the Nobel Prize in economics. And he won the Nobel Prize in economics because he, is researching into risk and how you perceive things. So a lot of this is taken from that book because the way that you process things is obviously quite fundamental. So he talks about dual process theory. So your brain is split into 2 models. One is the intuitive, what they call system 1. As you was aware, is low mental effort. It's very quick, very fast, effortless. Attentive system 2 is a higher mental effort. Takes a second for you to kick in, work something out. So what happened was your system 1, the intuitive process, when you saw that equation, it broke the rule and passed it to your system 2. So you paused and stopped and went to calculate stuff. So neither one is good nor bad. I'm not saying one is better than the other. We just want to fine tune your visuals and your approach to your visuals. Yeah. So as I say, so intuitive and attentive. So you can have some tasks which are originally attentive, which become intuitive. Anyone think of probably a common one that everyone can do in this room? Driving. Remember learning to drive? Remember passing your test? Don't want to do that again. But when you first start, it's like, where's the wheel? What are the levers? Blah blah. Now you just get in the car, drive if you drive, and away you go. That lost time when you're driving down the motorway, and you might have been wondering, and you don't know where you're going. Well, you know where you're going, but you haven't been aware of the passenger's time until the car in front of you puts its brake lights on. Yeah. So you've got your intuitive and your attentive. One's fast, one's slower. But as I say, they're not better or worse than each other. I just want to focus these things. So how do you, in your report design, leverage your intuitive process. You do it in a number of ways. The quick wins are usually layout. Fabio's presentation a couple of months ago talked about where you put your best visual. You read from left to right, top to bottom. So your most important visual should be maybe in your top left. Think about menus and, I'm sorry, on a computer and other things. They're always normally in the top left, aren't they? Particularly on the Mac, they use that top left quite intuitively. So yeah, you put your thing there, put your most important visual there, gives you quick information hits. You can lead your viewer across or down. So you have a descending order of granularity. So you start with high level and work your way down. Now, when I was a Power BI consultant, going, give them the training, and then they come up with all these different visuals. And this one was a work of art. It was beautiful. Color scheme was amazing. It was tessellated like nothing else. But unfortunately, all the information was all over the place. Most important thing was down here. Well, you know, there's a random figure which they didn't really need was at the top. And it looked beautiful, but it didn't, you have to go around looking for things. That's cognitive burden. If you have to go around looking for things, you probably haven't done that well in preparing the visual. You know, you want to show what happened, why did it happen? Yeah. So you get descending order granularity. And also in visuals, I always say add context so they're quickly understandable. So here I've got like a little spark line. I've seen lots of visuals like, you know, up 20% this month. You think, yeah, brilliant, I'm up 20%, that's fabulous. But if you've been doing that for the last 6 months, why is a snapshot, but didn't give the overall trend? Spark lines are your friend. Best quick way to understand things, how your brain processes shapes and colour, is to remove, is to order your chart to remove unnecessary colour. So obviously here I'm measuring the same thing. There's no need for all that. There will only be extra nanoseconds for your brain to process colour, but you don't need it. So what you can do is a lot more intuitive to understand, because your brain will fill in the blanks for you. It tries to fill in the shapes, and it's easy to compare the shapes when things are ordered. Then you can use colour and, you know, ordering to focus the user. So here's a method here. If you're in Division 5, you can quickly see in relation to, your eyes drawn to that bold colour. You can quickly see and relate to that number in comparison to the first. So the one on your left is showing that comparison overall, and obviously the one on the right moves it, so it shows the comparison to the leader. That's a lot more intuitively understandable than that. Well, what's the fourth highest? Yeah, order it. Obviously, it doesn't normally work for time series, but you know, for other things, you can order things quite well. The impact of colour. So again, there's a little bit of an overhead in colour and how your brain understands colour. So this is your brag status, red, amber, green. I'm ridiculously colourblind, so this is red, which what to me. So you have kind of, to some degree, it's not that accessible in a lot of ways in terms of colour blindness, and you know, your eyes are immediately drawn to the bolder colour. Reduce that level of cognitive burden and make it a lot easier to see the differences. I always go for monochrome palettes. It decreases your cognitive burden, reduces the impact of colour blindness. So 1 in 12 people, men, will be colourblind, mostly red, green. Women, it's 1 in 200. Women carry the gene, but are not affected by it. Kind of interesting. So yeah, so you know, roughly 1 in 10, your viewers will be colourblind. I say that's that red, amber, green is just confusing for me, but it shows the variation a lot easier. Your eye gets drawn to the dark, mid, and the light shapes a lot easier. Anyone here else colourblind? Why am I the only person in the room that's colourblind? I just made a mockery of my statistics. Okay, so yeah, so colourblind. So there's a lot of the papers. Which do you see first? Do you see shape first or colour? Which happens now? Half the papers say shape first. The other half say colour. There's new research say that your eyes, your brain perceives shape and colour. You sort of parallel process it, but mostly see colour first. But when your eyes were developing, everything was a blur, and you saw colour, then refined down to shapes. So you see colour a lot quicker than you see a shape, and your eye gets drawn to that colour. So when I went to show you that ordered chart, your eyes were drawn to that red. Yeah. Layout, another one. So see this kind of quite a lot. You know, we see that white space on the Power BI report, and you think, right, I've got this visual. I need to fill this white space. Take a step back. It's not very intuitive. It's not very easy to see. It doesn't seem like a lot of variation. If you reduce the shape and size, you can see there's quite a lot of variability in there. So, you know, empty space is your friend. Don't feel the need to just massively fill everything up. And when you do choose visuals, try to keep it limited. Don't overload the viewer. Have that descending more granularity. Use that time and time again. Your users will become used to it. So an intuitive process becomes an intensive process, and they become very familiar, excuse me, with the way you present things. Yeah. Oh, choose the right vision for the right job. This is from a PhD thesis that looked at population rise, and they've used two line charts, sorry, the bar chart, sorry, a column chart and a line chart, and they're measuring the same things, population rise, which makes it harder to understand the relationship between the dots and the columns. So what you do is make it a lot easier. You can quickly see in relation now the different population rises. I'll just take it back. Yeah, it's hard to compare, isn't it? Your brain is doing too much processing, scanning up and down the chart, whereas that is nice and easy, nice and simple. Keep it simple. That's the golden rule. So when we talk about cognitive burden, again, is to remove distractions, make your user focus on things. So, yeah, number one offender for visuals is obviously Excel. You can have it in 3D, you can have pie charts, you can have 3D pie charts. You know, you can have, you know, anything you desire, really. It's probably, you know, pie chart is like the fourth best option ever for presenting your data. I don't like pie charts. And normally you only get them because a manager really insists on it. Better ways to visualize things. Don't like pie charts. But yeah, we want to remove that cognitive burden. There's a lot of mistakes on this. You know, we've got a bold line here, not aligned. The colors are okay. You've got background. Point the background. You've got buttons in places, a title. These aren't formatted correctly. Yeah, we switch between the two. Right away, we move the title to top left because it's an intuitive process. You look at a visual quickly, you see what it's all about. I've used shape and color. So this trends on Gestalt theory of perception. So I've got a thicker, bolder color, right? A thicker line, bolder color to draw your attention to that one. Yeah. So it stands out in comparison. I've formatted the axes correctly. It looks a lot nicer and a lot simpler. Remove distractions where necessary. Think about particularly 3D charts. There was a visual in digital camera amateur photography magazine, and it was like a 3D curve and showed you how the shape, that shape showed you how good the sensor was on the camera. Spending a lot of money on an expensive camera, you want to see exactly how it performs. I wrote into them several times saying, look, that's not a really good visual because you can't see how it's performing in the various areas that are hidden behind the 3D chart. They stopped using it now. I don't know if that had an impact, but at least they stopped using it. Oh, sorry, this is another interactive bit. So hands ready. Which is the dead list? Disease that kills 1,206 people out of every 10,000, or disease that kills 24.14% of the population. Don't try and work it out. Which one do you think is the dead list? If you think A, raise your hand. If you think B, raise your hand. Too smart for this. This is annoying. Okay, you're right. It is B. In a survey people were asked which one's the deadliest, and most people responded A. It's the disease that kills 1,296 people. Okay, so I'm going to talk about another part of psychology, abstraction, how you can visualize and perceive numbers. We did a little bit with the, how many dice there were. There's 3 dice is nice and quick. 7 dice took a little, you had to count it, so it's a little bit slower. All right. So when does a number become abstract? It's quite low, actually, about 15. So if you kind of close your eyes and try and imagine a dot, then add 2 dots, 3 dots, 4 dots, 5 dots, it breaks down around 15. If you try to imagine individual dots, it's even harder. So use a pattern that you're familiar with, the dice pattern, a little X for 5, do 5, 10, 15, 20, you can get up to. That's a good example of something that's intuitive and attentive. So when my children were growing up, I watched them to see when they stopped counting the dots on the dice and started recognising the pattern. They don't want to count the dots on the dice anymore, you just recognise the pattern. It's now an intuitive process, it's quick, it's fluid. Yeah. So yeah, about 15, it's great. Things sort of break down. People try and imagine, hundreds of things, 100 people or something like that. It starts to break down. So yeah, 15, 20. Yeah. So that's an example of frequency format. We're very good at looking at how many. We're not very good at looking at how probable. And the biggest offender of abstraction is percentages, because you're trying to compare something against 100 of something or even more. Yeah, try and imagine 10%, 25%, stuff like that. It's too abstract for your brain to sort of work out. And that initial question about which is the most deadliest disease, there was a very abstract percentage, and people sort of shied away from that because the number was materialized in people's heads. So you intuitively understand, how many more than how likely. That's why a lot of people in the survey choose option 1. When you look at things, if you look at media and posters and lots of different things, you'll see the switch between frequency formats. Some will use a percentage, some will use a ratio. And ratio effectively materializes something for you. And some good evidence that, for example, part manufacturers are looking at part failure rates, and they were looking at like 15% part failure rate. That's fine, right? 15%, small number compared to 100. But they switched to a ratio, and suddenly they saw, 1 in 10, 1 in 4 parts were failing, and it materialized a number. So they started a lot more attention on part failure rates and brought that number right down. Yeah. So when you talk about currently there's mental health awareness and cancer rates, they'll present their data in kind of a ratio format. 1 in 3 people will get a certain disease. Yeah. They won't say, if you say 33%, this sort of a bit too abstract. You understand intellectually it's a third, but it's a lot easier to understand 1 in 3 than it is 33%. Yeah, we're all 1 in 10. Yeah. So you can have the evil effect, manipulative effect of frequency format. So yeah, you can mislead people into thinking something. Yeah, so the survey people picked answer A, but some good body of evidence of defence and prosecution, lawyers, barristers will use one or the other to argue the point. DNA will force a massive 1 in 1,000. This man here is a victim of this 1 in 1,000, and from the jury it materialises that number. Whereas prosecution lawyer will blind you with decimal places and say 0.1%. If I say 0.1%, do you immediately think 1 in 1,000? You just think 0.1%. Yeah. Banking. When to use frequency format? Banking, percentages, mortgages, because you're comparing things. You're not saying, well, 5p out of every pound I'm getting cash back. It's 5% because you'll be comparing your deals against various other things. That's the effect of frequency format. Yeah. And when we talk about both percentages and ratios, how do you deliver the message? Is there a good ratio to use? So yeah, Use a pair of 10s where you can, because they were all base 10. Round up and round down. You know, don't do 1.5 in 17. That just breaks the model. Make it nice and intuitive. Anyone remember this? It's from the late 70s, early 80s. Right. This was Whisker's cat food. And they say like 8 out of 10 cats preferred it. But yeah, it's the same as 4 out of 5 cats preferring it, or 80% of cats. Which one scans better? Which one do you relate to better? The 8 out of 10. Yeah, 80% cats preferred it. But we're going to talk about the context of it being positive or negative as well. So, is it positive or negative context? So, as with the cat food, 2 out of 10 cats refused it. You know, 20% of cats absolutely hated it. Yeah. How do you deliver the message? What sort of context do you want to put it in? I'll go and see the doctor. He'll say, you know, 1 in 10 people have complications in surgery. That immediately puts you in that 1 in 10. I am that 1 in 10. I am that unlucky. But if you say, yeah, 9 out of 10 people, no problems. Yeah, that's brilliant. I'm one of those 9. Fantastic. If it's really good, let's say 10% of people. So they'll blind you with the percentage. Yeah. So think of the context, you know, 90% target achieved, 3% target remaining. You know, just think about how you want to deliver that message, which is the more positive or negative context. Yeah. That's it for me. Hope you've learned something. Any questions?
John,
Yeah.
I'll ask you, you once will do a survey here, see which people see shapes or what was the other one? Shapes,
Colour, yeah.
Shapes or colours.
Yeah. I've been toying with got a black and white photograph of I was in New York for my honeymoon about 11 years ago. I've got a black and white photograph, I've got taxis in there. I coloured the taxis in. Sorry, converted the black and white and then coloured the taxis as the yellow taxi. I think that's an interesting experiment. Except what point would you see that photograph as colour and not black and white? I was thinking about going and colouring all the different people and see what's going on. Another good one is priming. I've done this in my previous company, where I gave a bunch of people sort of the same question, but arranged it differently. I said, you know, give me an estimate for this laptop. Don't give me a price under £800. I gave somebody else the same one, but said, don't give me a price above £1,500. Yeah. So I'm priming the person to deliver a high or low number. So if I ask you 2 different random questions, has anyone seen, if I asked half the room, has anyone seen Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs? Okay, then ask another unrelated question. How many countries are in Africa? You'd probably give it a lot lower number. I asked the other half of the room, have you seen 101 Dalmatians? Then ask the same question, how many countries are in Africa? On average, the second one will have a higher average number than the first one. So primed you with a low number, 7, 101. So all these little experiments you can do to prime people. You can see it quite a lot, a lot of times in some of the media.
Unconscious bias.
Yes, unconscious bias. They prime you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I'll just give a comment on the we did the visualization that where you took the background out.
Yeah.
For life of me, I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the author, but he referred to that as data ink.
Yeah.
So you could basically how much data ink do you actually need to define your visualization?
Yeah. Shoe leather is another good one to term as well. Because you have to walk all the way around it. How much shoe leather you're going to burn to try to understand it? So that's in some of the other literature. But there's, as I say, I did Power BI consulting, I do the training, and I'd obviously do the consultant thing of, that's really good, we'll just tidy up a bit, which is consultants people, what were you thinking? I'm going to have to rebuild from scratch. And the colours people came, and there's a lot of good websites out there to have complementary, you want nice, bland, neutral colours, be bland, colour can get in the way. That's one of the things, I mean, particularly for me, because I am colourblind, I like Power BI because it's the established colour scheme is quite nice. Use colour sparingly and use it to focus, because obviously some of it was like fluorescent pinks and fluorescent yellows, and it gives you a migraine just to look at this report. And just so tone it down, nice, safe, keep it simple, keep it neutral, like Switzerland. Any other questions? Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah. So the number one thing we normally get is that there's a corporate colour scheme. Oh, we want to use these colours. And then we a lot of times have to go back and argue why you don't want to use it. Use it for your titles and stuff, but don't use it for your charts, because normally corporate colour schemes are very bold. They're very kind of smash you in the face. I used to work for a company called Rico. A lot of theirs was orange. Work for Avanade now. That's a smash of orange in your face. You know, I don't know, orange seems to be a very tech-friendly colour for some reason. But yeah, tone it down. I always go back to the customer requirements and say, hey, this is how we present it, and try to explain them why. Sometimes there's no way you can get over the hippo, highest paid person's opinion. I've got to have a pie chart. It's sliced 20 ways. How can you see anything? Your eye gets drawn to the middle. You know, this is pointless. Let's have a nice little chart instead. And sometimes you can't get over that. Sometimes marketing will just come down and say, we're going to have this. And you have to just try and sort of bite your lip and move on. You know, if you can get sneak other victories in, yeah, fine. But yeah, you know, customer requirements, they're always vague, as with any project. Customers don't quite know what they want. If you show them a better way, they're normally accepted.
On that point, one of the techniques I've heard of, is to not use colour at all when you're doing your designs. So when you're presenting to the customer, do it in black and white and grey.
Yeah.
And then say, because as soon as you put a colour in, they're immediately drawn to that. And the way I've done it previously is I've actually put the logo of the company in colour.
Yeah.
To emphasise the fact that, look, as soon as I put colour on there, you're looking at that, not paying attention to what the dashboard is trying to tell you.
Sorry, do you have a question?
Yeah, so just for today, came across you work in the profit sector.
Yeah.
They've got something called work content consistency guide.
Yes.
So, I mean, in a sense, I think as consultants, it's probably good to get quite familiar with that as well, so that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good, yeah. How can you make the report more accessible? So I talk about colourblind because it's something that's very close to my eyes, really, not my heart. But yeah, it's that sort of, yeah, when you're dealing with things, you know, you have a high contrast version, low contrast version. Do you have different versions for different particular needs? There's one of the things I used to do. If I just stop presenting for a second, there's a good, because people get very confused on what visual to use, and they use the wrong visual. There's a very good website called From Data to Viz. Oh. So it starts you off with what sort of categories you want. You know, you've got 2 numeric variables. You can print this out as well. Oops, sorry, my mouse is going. So which do you need? Because people say go for a pie chart or a column chart or some sort of radar chart. I don't like radar chart. There's better ways of displaying data, but it gives you a nice little starting plot to how do you do things. I don't particularly like 3D area charts. There's some of the ones in there. There's there's a couple of good visual design guys out there as well. Colin Affleck does a book called Storytelling with Data and You, where it gives you examples of data and like a blank page, so you can draw in the book itself. And she's got a very good Twitter presence, and she goes through like a storytelling with data competition roughly every month or so, where she'll give you a subset of data and say, how do you best visualize it? It seems. Well, Colin Affleck is very good. Stephen Few's got a bit quiet recently. I think there's
he's been writing on a different, like a data room.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, the 1 out of 10, 5 out of 20, 4 out of 4, how have you got that working in Power BI?
Yes.
How did you?
You just do a couple of modular functions. It's quite big.
Yeah.
It's like the existing number divisible by 10. You find your remainders, and then it's quite nasty. Okay. Yeah, there's a couple of, if you Google it, it's out there on the old internet. I did try getting ChatGPT to write it for me, and it did quite a good job. But yeah, I got stuck on a couple of things, but there's a lot of Excel stuff out there as well. And if you can do it in Excel, you can convert it to Power BI. Yeah. Cool. Any more questions? One more at the back.
You said that it's better to present information in a pie chart.
No, not in a pie chart.
You say it's not better. It's obvious hypertext feature. So just thinking.
Yeah, never a pie chart.
I think a pie chart which presents the information in the percentage
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a good medium?
If you have to use a pie chart, have no more than 5 categories. And if you can, use a donut chart, because it removes that draw to the middle. And your brain can sort of work out the kind of, because basically it's just curved bars, isn't it? A donut chart. Your brain can work out the relation. But when you've got values which are quite close to each other and just a little bit out, your brain's not going to perceive that. So it should always be a bar or column chart where necessary. And if you've got more than 5, it just breaks down, particularly if you've got like a massive quantity and a small quantity. Your brain's not very good at working out the spatial relationship. So yeah, never a pie chart. I'll show you, I've got a mouse mat in there from a conference, and it's got literally pie chart. In fact, I'll get it out. I use it all the time. From competitor Adatis. Pie chart is saved because the CFO wants one. Yeah, that's exactly it. So that's from a visualization by a guy called Alba. It's freely available to download. Yeah, it's very good. I use this all the time. Cool. Thank you. Oh, one more. Yeah.
Pretty quick to, read the, content. Now working with the bidding team was not, very well work with the numbers. Even show them a small pie chart, that's when there is offline. So how to engage with different audiences? It's not about how you create something, it's about how to establish psychology.
I suppose if you were doing with investment, the percentage of it might be okay. Might be able to use percentage of that ratios or something based on.
Yeah. So the question was, how do you target for different audiences?
Like,
Yeah.
The one system. I think for the leadership team, because of, we created task of having this like what you with 5 or
Yeah.
But for the different audience, it's very new system.
Yeah. It's an into it goes straight for no pie charts. I mean, I feel like I don't like pie charts. Well, one didn't scare me as a child or anything like that, but I don't. Yeah, there's better ways of showing the data. So if your audience is new, it's a process of education. So like with the color background and stuff like that, just remove them. You can do A/B testing. You can just do it and see if anyone complains. Probably won't. People do love pie charts, but they're not the best visual. People think they understand various things, but they're not cognitively understanding it. They're going looking at something. Yeah, fine. Yeah, it's the process of education. So there's been a number of previous one when they did a lot of PowerPoint. There's a lot of education of trying to get people to move away from, because oh god, we all say the one thing everyone in this room will hate is, oh, I've got an Excel report, just recreate that in Power BI. The wrong answer. Yeah, you don't want a table, you want a nice chart to intuitively show something. So it's all that education process of showing people what is possible and why it's possible. I'll do a talk on promoting a data culture within your organisation is a process of education and showing people examples and leading them by the hand sometimes and saying this is why we're doing it this way and this is the evidence for it. Do you have any evidence for why we shouldn't do that? And people generally go, no. So yeah, it's a process of education. Colin Affleck's one is very good at explaining why. Colin Affleck's storytelling with data. She goes through a lot of the concepts there. Stephen Hughes' book is the same one, showing the numbers, but Cole's is a lot more accessible. And you can take a lot of examples from that and show this is why. Yeah.
John, could you put that slide up with 3 books on it?
Yeah, sure. Any more? Am I running out of time or?
No, mate, we're ahead of schedule, so fire away with questions.
Why is it not working? I hate technology.
Sorry, John.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna report the session.
I've been with GitHub.
And then a question.
Has it crashed?
I totally agree with you. It's nice to keep things simple. If you don't
Yeah.
try and
Well,
show too much, yeah.
So One of the most important lessons we learned with building a Power BI report was keeping it simple. So I used to work for a company called Vision. We got took over by Rico, and Rico got all these field engineers to go and repair printers and stuff. Yeah. And to prove our worth to the company, because they'd spent a couple of million on buying the company, my CFO called me and said, John, we need to find out where the engineers are, where the printers are, where the gaps are, where do we need more resource, or where are we over resource. I thought, well, Power BI, brilliant. Gave them like 9 visuals on this report. It looked beautiful. It's fabulous. Yeah, but showed it to the my CFO. He goes, it's really good, John, but I just want to see, you've got this over here. I just want to see where the engineers are, where the gaps are, what can we do about it. I stripped it down to 4 visuals. It showed them where they were, and put a nice little map on there because they love maps. And then that was keep it simple. Yeah, you see, my dean say that visual said it's nicely tessellated. It was pointless. It was scanning it everywhere. Keep it simple, and that's the hardest thing to do is keep it simple, as with any designs. Cool. Question.
What would you say is the best alternative to a table? Because I know, like, I work in finance and tables.
Depends on what you're trying to measure. Yes, some sort of line chart to show change over time. Bar or column chart to show comparisons, because that's what you're showing in comparison between the two. Yeah. I mean, your visuals may look dull and boring, but they'll be effective. If you've got low line charts, sometimes you can use a heat map or something like that to throw things up a bit, but nice dull charts.
So in a way, a table would sort of kind of go well into like maybe 4 different visuals. That's
we could have table with a spark line or something like that. If you need to put a table on there so people can actually physically see the numbers, that's fine. But when you start interacting with it, that's where the benefit comes in.
The old adage, a picture paints 1,000 words, so you have visuals at the top and you still have your table at the bottom.
Yeah.
Detail, you drill down.
But it's only more granularity, drill downs, drill throughs. It's all good. Cool. Okay, over time.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions. That's fine.
Thank you.
No, if you got any other questions or the best thing is always start with, when you design reports, always start out with a pencil and piece of paper, draw it out. Just focuses you a lot better. Just draw it out, come with ideas, and something go forward. Cool. Thank you very much. I'll keep an eye on my Twitter.